I do want to go back to the Mayo Clinic when they told you that you should address your diet. Did they tell you specifically what diet you should be looking at? Did they mention anything about low carbohydrate or ketogenic diets, or did they just say you should look at diet?
They just said you should look at diet. And of course, one of the things that I've always done is research. And so I figured, well, I've been on mostly a vegetarian diet all these years. How's that working for you? Well, it wasn't working great. And I mean, when we go out to eat, I got a salad. My family just shakes their head at how I go 110% down any road. And so my idea was to look at nutrition research. And and wow, there was so much nutrition research, but then those presentations at that Cape Town low carb symposium were just incredible in terms of their research evidence. And of course, all of those presenters posted their references, and there were thousands of them. And yes, I found those studies, read a lot of those studies. I think my initial collection of nutrition studies was about 1,200 studies that I read. And it was just such an eye-opening experience. So I think when Mayo said, look at diet, and I came home and said, well, I've been doing this. And so I'm going to swing over here and look at this research. And it was like the answer
Wow.
to not only my medical conditions, but the answer to my new mission,
Wow.
my new calling, which was to help people learn this approach and
Wow.
improve their health. Um, I have a patient I just started working with a month ago. Her diabetes is already in remission. I mean, who gets to do that?
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
Wow. That's so cool. I just think you were vegetarian for a
Right,
reason, and it was for health. I think it
right.
would be so much easier to say, "Oh, I need to look at diet." Well, maybe I should go harder into vegetarianism or veganism. And you're right. The studies are there. It's an astounding amount of research that has been done within the last 100 years and beyond. All of this stuff
Exactly.
has been looked at, and if you want to search for it, you can find it. But it's not typically the first things that come up on like a Google search. And so I
Right.
do find it really interesting that you were again somehow led to this information and realized that you were doing a vegetarian diet for health reasons, but it wasn't providing you the health that you were looking for, and you completely switched the other direction.
I really did. And of course, it also spoke to my background in neurology. I knew that the brain needed certain fuels that it does better with. I also was a pediatric therapist for a number of years, working with babies and young children. And you know what? Babies are in ketosis. As long as they're breastfed, they need vast amounts of brain injury and energy for neurological development. So all of these pieces started fitting together for me. And I thought, okay, if ketones can help babies and protect their brains, what could they do for people with neurological conditions, brain tumors? You know, it it just was one of those conversion experiences that Gary Taubes calls it, one of those aha moments that I could not deny. That, yes, I think God led me to just investigate this whole area. And it certainly had benefits for me. And since 2014, when I really started investigating this, I have seen patient after patient after patient with rather miraculous improvements. Of course, everybody's improvements are different, they're at a different rate. It really depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Sure. Yeah, that's Very well said. And it's one of those things, like you said, that you can't unsee it once you see so many of these stories piling up and this fixing a seemingly almost endless amount of different things. You're right. It's going to be individual with everybody, but
Right.
the list of things you can improve on this diet is absolutely incredible. And I don't want to just fly by this, but you decided that even though you had a tumor, you were not going to do anything with it. What is the status of that today?
Oh, it was gone within a year of starting this whole thing.
Wow.
And the symptoms were gone probably in the first month.
Wow. That's amazing.
Right. And I mean, I was pre-diabetic. I had a severe case of fibromyalgia. I'd had it for years. So even when I would exercise, it would practically lay me low. There were very few things that I could do. I couldn't lift weights because if I tried to lift weights, literally I would be in bed. My fibromyalgia was so bad. And
Wow.
of course, now I power lift. I'm kind of an old lady, but I power lift about 80 pounds.
That's
Uh,
great.
Working towards 100. That's my goal this year.
Wow. Good for you.
And yeah, it's phenomenal. And I just feel like if we can use diet, and I'm talking about a continuum in terms of therapeutic carbohydrate reduction. I'm way up here at this end. I'm, less than 5% of my daily intake from carbohydrates. Now some of my patients are more like, you know, 30 grams or 50 grams. They do okay. They do fine on that. So it's very individualized. I also love that about this approach. I can customize it. I even have patients that, for religious reasons, do not eat many animal products. They eat dairy and eggs. And so for them, yes, I can create a ketogenic approach. They get into nutritional ketosis. It's a little harder to push that protein. So when they do the dairy, I do have them add some dairy-based or some egg-based proteins to their diet. So the beauty is I can customize it to meet needs, and
Yeah.
that's what metabolic health is about.
Wow. Oh, I love that. I'm actually a little bit glad we don't live in the same place and work out at the same gym because if you came in lifting 80 pounds, it's way more than I can lift, probably. You just make me look bad in front of everybody in the gym. That's wonderful. Wait, how did your interest in Parkinson's kind of evolve over time? Is the thing that you wanted to focus on? And if you don't mind, would you explain exactly what Parkinson's is? I think if somebody asked me today, I would obviously be able to identify some symptoms, but probably not be able to go much past that. So, could you tell us how your interest involved in what it actually is?
Absolutely. So, as an occupational therapist, I had worked with patients with neurological conditions across the lifespan. So, I would have infants in my rehab program that had neurological conditions, clear up to 90-year-olds with Parkinson's disease. So, the whole gamut. And what I found was there were very few treatments that really helped people with Parkinson's. Yeah, the synthetic dopamines that they take do help the motor symptoms somewhat, but there's so many other things involved in Parkinson's other than the motor. Now, that's the first thing you see. I'm glad you asked this because there was a time 20 years ago when you probably didn't know anybody with Parkinson's, and you didn't know anybody who knew anybody with Parkinson's. Well, that is not the case anymore. Currently, it's estimated that there are 1 million people in the US living with Parkinson's disease, which is supposed to increase to 1.2 million by 2030. That's just 5 years from now.
Goodness.
Worldwide, there are approximately 10 million people living with the disease, and that each year there are 90,000 new cases of Parkinson's disease that are diagnosed. Um, Men are 1.5 times more likely to be diagnosed with Parkinson's than women, and the direct costs and indirect cost totals in the US each year related to Parkinson's is about 52 billion with a B dollars.
Wow.
So it really has increased since the last 10 years, and I have ideas about why that is. So when the board at the Colorado Parkinson Foundation contacted me to do this fully funded research, again, it was one of those open doors that was perfect in timing. I knew that this is what I wanted to do in metabolic health, but to be able to help people with Parkinson's, wow, because it's something that, it's an area I had worked in for many, many years. Now, I like to use Dr. Matt Phillips in New Zealand, his iceberg analogy when you're describing Parkinson's, because there are two tremor diagnoses that you can have. One is familial tremor, which is not Parkinson's. It's a familial genetic related tremor that you see people have. The other is Parkinson's. Parkinson's is now the #1 movement disorder in the world.
Wow.
And it is characterized, according to Dr. Phillips' analogy, by the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is tremor or a little difficulty with the smoothness of your gait. Those are the first two things that you notice.